rapid transformations happening, change management's happening, and a shelf life of a skill typically lasts 5 years. But with AI, we're seeing these changes happen much more rapidly. I would say a skill shelf life now is probably 2 years.
Welcome to the /podcast, where we lean into the future of IT by inviting fellow thought leaders, innovators, and problem solvers to slash through its complexity. I'm your host, James Carman, and today we're talking to Ben Tasker. Ben Tasker is a recognized leader in AI education, workforce transformation, and responsible AI adoption. He currently leads a data and AI academy that upskills more than 36,000 employees in the public utility sector, helping prepare one of the country's most essential workforces for the future. Previously, Ben served as Dean of AI at Southern New Hampshire University, where he launched applied AI certifications supporting over 225,000 listeners. He has also taught at Northeastern University's Corey College of Computer Sciences and brings experience as both a data scientist and AI product leader. Welcome to the /, Ben.
Thank you for the great introduction, James. It's fun to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. 225,000 learners. That's quite a...
They're still growing. They're still growing. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. And that's through the Southern New Hampshire University, where, my goodness, man. Well, that's great. That's fantastic. They're all learning about AI. That's awesome. Really
more than just AI. That's total learners.
Okay, I gotcha. You seem to be big into education, and how did you get interested in that field?
It was actually from my own lack of upskilling and reskilling and awareness a little bit. So I went to undergrad for healthcare management and policy. And there I really thought I wanted to learn to run a hospital. And initially I did. So my first job was in a hospital, and I was given some data tasks. And one of the tasks was to evaluate doctors' offices for patient demand. And the real ask behind that was figure out what our patient volumes are so we can save revenue. That was really the administrative ask. But early in my career, I thought it would be a very fun, interesting project. I thought we would have all the data we needed from these clinicians. Furthest from the truth, some of the data didn't exist. Clinicians were entering it because they're so busy with patients. It became a very human-centric problem. So human, I actually had to go and meet with some of the clinicians to get they handed me papers so I could actually count how many patients they had. But the volumes were critical because if the hospital closed a practice that was actually servicing a lot, but in the database wasn't servicing it enough, right? That could have been detrimental. And that's when I really started to understand the human impact of data in that case. But it also made me realize for myself that there's so much value behind the data, more than just a simple forecast. And at the same time, data science and data analytics programs are starting to emerge. I already had that business background, so to go get an MBA to me didn't make much sense. And I have that innovative thought process. I really like math, coding, the numbers. Data science was where it was at for me. It's still where it's at for me. I'm glad I did it, but I learned about the AI algorithms, how to apply them. We've built real projects with companies. One of the companies was in education. It was the college system of New Hampshire, so they eventually hired me. The first project in that space was similar to patients, but now we're looking at students, trying to predict students that might not complete college and providing resources to those students so that they're much more likely to complete. So some of those resources could be extra tutoring, potentially changing course from day to evening, maybe potentially changing majors. There's a bunch of colleges in the college system, so potentially changing colleges so it was closer to where they live if they had to commute. A bunch of resources were available to these students that they didn't even know existed. They just wanted to continue to get their education. We helped more than one individual, but bringing this back to humans, like that's all data science. There was an advanced algorithm of 20 predictors there. We helped more than one, but just helping one was so satisfying to see because people don't think of data scientists out in the field helping individuals, dark room, maybe not much light. They're running these algorithms that people don't fully understand, but this was very out in the front. We had to go interact with the students, figure out how best to help them. Just because we make an algorithm doesn't mean they're going to actually use the resources. Work with faculty to make sure that the values in the database made sense. Like these are actual values that, right? Like if we're saying there's 26 students in the database, there's 26 students in your course. True. Yes. Great. So that's where I really valued the human impact of AI where I saw the true potential. I then transferred out of academia into healthcare. I met some faculty while working for the college system, and through those faculty, similar process. But now we're back with patients. There's bedside monitors or other data that's constantly collected at a hospital. It's static and dynamic data. The dynamic data is live. The static data lives in the database. Think about like a wearable or your phone. That's more dynamic. And they wanted to predict patients that might need help that they wouldn't see in the static data until the day after
Hmm.
much more quickly. It's more of an intervention. It wasn't a strict something's going to happen, but if they can predict sepsis, infection, any of the other conditions that are through this dynamic data a little bit more quickly, and if a clinical staff can go over and be like, yeah, this person actually probably is going to get an infection, maybe we should do something a little bit more quickly. It's saving lives on scale. That project saved 1,000 lives. It's still currently ongoing. It's phenomenal. Another human impact project that we didn't really think we would see, but we did.
That's really
So
cool.
yeah, that's why I love AI. I think it's a powerful tool if it's used correctly, and that's a bit about me.
Okay, I got to ask curiosity question here. How did you get in the idea that going into your undergrad to study, you wanted to run hospitals? Is it you have a family member who's a doctor or somebody who was a hospital administrator? How did that come to be your thing? Like, now that's just interesting to me.
So a hospital's in each like so this is very young Ben thinking, not
Gotcha.
necessarily so much true now, but a hospital is a very unique ecosystem. It has clinicians, it has administrators, it has patients. So there's even at like if you say you work at a hospital, there's like 1,000 jobs right right there potentially. I knew I so much didn't really fall into the clinical side. There's a lot of schooling behind that. Again, I'm more innovative. There's a lot of rules around it. So I fell into administration, a traditional business degree. It was hard for me to conceptualize. Me personally doesn't mean you can't conceptualize that, but so for hospital administration, I knew I would eventually work in a hospital. There's patients there. It was just as a young individual, it was easier for me to conceptualize. So that's why I did it.
Gotcha. So you're close to kind of education and in particular AI in education. What are you seeing as far as trends are concerned around like, I'm sure people are hearing all sorts of stuff about the market and what the future of jobs and the future of work and all of that. Where are people gravitating in higher ed or maybe outside of work, learning new things as a second career or something like that? Where are people gravitating these days? What are you seeing as a trends in that area?
So short term, education's operating the same as it always has. Students are going to school. There's actually a higher volume of students now than there were historically. Not as high during the pandemic, but closer to that level.
Hmm.
So degrees are still performing rather well. But there's also this shift in education to help lower costs, to align better with workforce, to focus on what's called skills-based education. A degree and a job are all linked to skills. And then at the end of your education journey, the university often says, you meet all these skills, here's your diploma. Now you can go work in workforce. But because of AI, rapid transformations happening, change management's happening. And a shelf life of a skill typically lasts 5 years. So if I go learn to code, I could probably survive knowing that just that one coding language like Python probably for 5 years before it changes again. But with AI, we're seeing these changes happen much more rapidly. I would say a skill shelf life now is probably 2 years. And that's not just coding, that's probably all skills. And the reason for that is because not only is the AI changing, but it's changing the systems around it. So instead of coding like we normally used to, we could code with Claude Code, Copilot, whatever AI tool you want to throw in there. It can do the basic coding pretty easily. And now, because you may have more advanced skills in coding or more experience in that field, you just have to double check it, and you're like, yeah, this is great. Or you can vibe code, which is when you prompt the AI and you can get a total application out of the code. For me, sometimes it takes a couple hours for something that used to take 20 hours. Phenomenal speed.
Now, another thing we're seeing with that speed up in, where we're kind of handing over the mechanics of coding, the clickety clackety on the keyboard. We're no longer doing that. There's kind of seems to be this trend of focusing and refocusing and maybe on kind of the human skills, that the softer side, where we've valued all those hard skills in the past, very, very hard skills, math, engineering, all of those sort of things. But it seems like those soft skills are the human skills are becoming more important. Are you recognizing that trend also in higher ed?
We weren't. So education takes a little bit to adapt. So it's a historic system. It does change, but it hasn't really changed much. And now with the skills changing as rapidly, employers also need to change quickly. And they need to teach their employees skills at a much faster rate. So typically, on average, it takes an individual 4 to 6 years to get a bachelor's degree, and then they go out into the workforce. Now, because its skills are changing as quickly as they are, yes, it still takes 4 to 6 years, but the workforce, not just only because of AI, there's many different factors, but AI is definitely amplifying this change. Like, hi folks, like I'm here. We need to do this a little bit more quickly, and the schools can't adapt that curriculum as fast as possible. And it's going to get shorter. So eventually, if we wanted to do this in 2 years, that still won't be fast enough. It needs to be 1 year. So to answer your question about the human skills, with all this transformation happening around it, I would say that you need to focus on blended programs. So human skills, often soft skills is what they're called. The beautiful thing about those skills is that they're uniquely human. AI can mimic those skills. It can mimic empathy. It can mimic communication. It can mimic leadership. But a human ultimately will still be better at those skills. And right now they don't pay a premium, but in the future they will pay a premium, because think of the AI skills, the technical skills that AI is just going to keep getting better at: coding, systems thinking, analytical thinking. I can keep going there, but any technical skill AI is going to be able to do. So what are humans going to end up needing to do? So to link these skills to jobs, just to help people conceptualize this a little bit, because skills might be a new way of thinking about this. Teaching, a firefighter, a police officer, jobs in the community that often go, undervalued, overlooked. Those are where the job demand is going to be, because it's going to be very hard for AI to do those jobs.
Yeah, I'm glad you put police officer in that list, because I've seen RoboCop when they turn it over to the robots. The Ed 209 thing. Tells him to drop the gun. He's like, okay, drops the gun. He's like, you have 10 seconds to comply. Yeah, I don't like the idea of robots being police officers. I think that's a bad idea. Too many movies for me. What are you seeing? Like, you mentioned this skills based career pathway. Tell me more about that. That sounds fascinating to me, actually.
So we just talked about skills, the two lanes: human skills and AI skills. There's these different, they're called skills taxonomy to blah blah people, but there's these skills frameworks that organizations can attach to. There's many different ones, so I'm not going to name one. And ultimately, it doesn't much matter, because what you need to do is you need to take the skills, you have to find a framework, and then you're going to match it to the jobs that your organization has. And in my opinion, the best way to do that is to have your employees take a skills assessment. So if I'm a data scientist, I'll be asked 20 questions. I might have to code. There might be some theoretical questions, but there'll be 20 questions. It's not a very extensive, exam. 20 questions, maybe an hour. You'll get a ranking for the employee will get a ranking, and it will also help highlight some growth opportunities. And you'll do that for all the employees of all the different job domains that you have. And that will set up a really strong foundation for you to be able to then see the skills that your organization has and what it lacks. And this is now, to answer your question, the skills-based learning approach. So now you'll have these lists of skills that your organization's lacking. And then, because you're trying to acquire skills, not necessarily degree programs, it's less academic, you can fast track them. So for example, if we want to teach our employees how to code a little bit better, but they're not going to be data scientists, computer scientists, one way that you could do that's through a mentorship program. Mentorship's a skill in itself. So now you're teaching two skills, but you could pair maybe a project manager with an entry-level data analyst. And the project manager is going to learn how to merge data more simplistically. Maybe you learn some AI tools that they might not be aware of. And then the analyst is going to learn some project management skills. Now you have a blended team. So learning doesn't really always have to be academic. Learning can be fun. Yes, degrees are still a thing. People can still go learn those more advanced concepts. You're still going to need that. If you want to be an AI engineer, you do have to have a very strong background. So the mentorship thing would set up a good foundation, but it's not going to make you an AI engineer overnight. But the beautiful thing about a skills-based organization and learning these skills is that instead of focusing on it for 4 years, you're creating your own what's called learning journey.
Uh-huh.
And you can navigate this learning journey through things that you like, focusing on human skills and AI skills, often at the same time, maybe without even realizing it. And then there's different levels of attainment. So maybe the project manager moves into data analytics, or the data analyst becomes a product owner over time. It reduces costs for the organization when there's all these different shifts around the organization, potentially around AI, whatever the next transformation period is. Your organization's all set because you have that continual agility, the learning framework. So skills-based learning is a short form learning method. It doesn't need to be academic. It can be. There's a lot of partners out there that do this, but it maps back to your learning journeys. And then that maps back to whatever skills framework that your organization's investing into.
So I can see how, like, internal to an organization, you might set up your learning journeys for specific job functions within the organization. What about like outside of organizations, out in the free market, in the real world, like outside of the specific organizations? These frameworks are available. Is there a marketplace for people to kind of fill out their skills tree, so to speak, like a video game, right? Like, how can I go get those skills that are in these frameworks and try to fill out that skill repertoire of mine so that I can closely match maybe what a potential employer that I might want to go work for a company. How can I do that? Are there great places for that? Obviously we can go to higher ed, but higher ed is going to make you take all the other stuff that maybe isn't something on that journey. How do we do that?
So from an individual perspective, this doesn't have to be this big task that we're afraid of. We should be leaning into this. So for me, even before I understood skills, I made a physical list, pen and paper, of what I thought I was good at. And then I brought it to a couple mentors. This was before AI existed, and they gave me some feedback, and that helped, increase what I was good at, but also helped indicate areas that maybe I wasn't as good at. And that then helped me produce some areas for me to expand upon. So one skill that I'm trying to develop is communication. And by doing these podcasts, I'm developing that communication skill. So that's not academic. This is a lot of fun for me. I'm learning how to communicate some very like structurally more advanced concepts, right? And I'm learning how to break that down for different audiences to understand better. That I thought of myself. That wasn't right. So you have to take that upon yourself to be able to improve upon what you're interested in, what you want to do. If you've never used AI, the first way I used an LLM, I took some pictures of some gym equipment and had it make a gym program for me. I wanted to get more fit. I was meeting a different goal. And if the workout equipment that I took a picture of made sense for the workout, it helped increase my trust. That's basic prompt engineering. It's
Uh-huh.
also multimodal AI, where I'm taking pictures to get text, another skill, right? That relates back to your job. It might not sound that advanced, but now think about being an engineer with a bunch of dynamics in front of you. How do you select the right one if you're put under pressure or you have to fix something very quickly? AI can help with that.
Uh-huh.
So the worlds are blending.
I love that idea. I'm always typing in like, okay, I've got kettlebells, I've got a cable crossover, I've got some dumbbells. I'm always manually doing it. I love the idea. Take a picture of the stupid gym and then do it multimodal. I love that idea. I'm going to use that next time because I do the same thing. I ask AI for kind of little workout plans for me.
That's awesome.
That's it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I got to ask. So this is interesting. So it just brought up in the past. We've had these organizations that have done this. Like, okay, you don't need all that extra speech class and history and all these humanities mumbo jumbo. We're going to teach you just the exact skills you need for the job. I'm thinking of, like, and I don't know if they're still around, DeVry, ITT Technical Institute, like those sort of things where they were literally just teaching you about programming or whatever the thing is. I mean, the trades have this. They've had this for a long time. I don't know why that didn't catch on. It seemed like those things were hot like in the 90s, I would say, 80s, 90s maybe. And then, but it didn't seem like that caught on. It seemed like the organizations were still like pedigree, pedigree, pedigree. Why didn't we catch on to this idea of like the skills that you have are more important than the paper that you have? Why did we not, I mean, we're a little thick-headed at times as human beings, I guess. But why did it not catch on until just now? What is the phenomenon that's going on right now that's making that more viable?
I consider AI, and this is a new concept for me, but it's more change management. And if you can take the AI out of it, but any new thing is change management. And companies at this time period, I don't think were fully adapted to having jobs linked to skills. We saw, fast forward after these organizations go out of business, that now companies are just adopting these skills frameworks. Walmart, for example, Verizon's a skills-based company. There's many more that have job descriptions based upon skills,
Mhm.
and there's different premiums for different skills, so employees can kind of figure out, I'll make this X amount if I go develop these skills, and here's opportunities for me to do that. Same concept with AI, but now AI is forcing the change. So not only are we trying to transform our organization to become more AI enabled, but now we have to change how the employees work with the AI. And there's all these different tools, all these different applications. It's probably very confusing for an organization, but at the employee level, it's still very confusing. Going to get that degree, it takes a lot of time, there's a lot of expense to it, but we are seeing universities short forming their degree programs. So they're called micro credentials, and micro credentials can stack over time. They're also called stackables. But I can go and earn a micro credential maybe in about 6 weeks from a university. They'll give me credit potentially if I trade this in. I don't have to trade it in. I can just take my micro credential and leave. It's better for the organization because it's faster paced. The employees are more successful at it. More employees complete it. Takes less time. Obviously, is one of the confounders of that. So yes, we are seeing it. I think though that most organizations are still not skill based. They're domain based and knowledge based organizations. So I think education sitting in the middle, trying to appease a very small percent of the market, but their largest population, everybody else isn't ready for that change. So it's a hard place to be in. Less people are going to school. The price continually increases. People are starting to question the value of the degree, not from the sense of being able to get a job, but the actual expense that they're taking out to go get the degree. Entry level jobs are being impacted by AI. A lot of the folks going to school are landing in those entry level positions,
Mhm.
usually, not always, but usually.
Mhm.
So it's a interesting time period. But to answer your question directly, this is why the short form stackables, micro credentials, whatever you want to call it, are popular, and they're going to increase in popularity because they are starting to have that impact, and people are starting to be able to pivot.
And I had heard of I'm glad you brought it up, the stackables concept, but I think I misheard it. I heard snackables. So I've been taking the wrong approach. I'm just now realizing this, man. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to have to rethink that.
It
That's
is
because
kind of
it's not
like that
working.
though, those right? Like it's
Yeah, I
similar.
do like them. Yeah, but I think that's not. It hasn't been paying off for me like I thought it was. No, no wonder. That makes a lot of sense now. I'm glad we had this conversation. You mentioned kind of working with AI and AI in the workplace, and you hear a lot of talk about we're replacing humans with agents. We're gonna have agents instead of employees, and so that's going to be a part of our future, whether we like it or not. And I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. There's certain things that I would rather have a robot do, not policing, as we've established. But how do we train folks to work in a world and live in a world where they're working side by side with agentic workflows in the workforce? How do we train them to be aware of that, to work side by side with agentic workflows in the workforce? How do we do that?
So this concept's considered a blended workforce, not in the sense of location where individuals are working, more in the
Hmm.
sense of the concept of individuals having to work with artificial intelligence, aka machines. And it doesn't have to be a physical machine like a robot, like RoboCop. It could be a virtual machine, agentic AI, for example, in your org chart. We've actually already seen this. So it might sound sci-fi to some listeners, but there are some organizations, you probably interact with one if you purchase online, that already has AI agents in the org chart and as employees. But think about that from a backwards lens. So now we have AI agents in the workforce. What skills do we need to train the humans on to be able to manage that AI agent? It's a little bit different than managing an employee. So now you have to focus in on those AI skills, example, prompt engineering, systems prompts. The AI agents, They're just one large prompt that's just automated. Instead of you prompting it, it just works off a series of, it's an expert system. It just works off a series of steps. So there's different AI agents. There's the virtual ones that are made off of those systems prompts. Then there's AI agents that can automate an entire system. An example of that is customer service. We probably have all interacted with a customer service agentic AI agent, right? Some of them
Hmm.
are horrible. Uh,
Yeah.
right. Most of them are horrible. One that was actually very well, I just booked a flight with, and it did the whole thing for me right on their website, and I didn't even have to go look for a seat. So it's coming along, but you have to train your employees how to interact with those. You have to. What happens if there's an incident, like a negative incident, and I'm using incident as a relative term here, more like a whoopsie. Like, what if that AI agent goes and does something not that great that gets you horrible press? How's your organization going to deal with that? That's responsible AI. That's AI ethics, an AI ethicist, responsible AI engineer. Do you have those in your organization? So this concept of AI agents isn't new. They've probably been around for many, many years. They're new in the sense that we're beginning to start to think of them more, and they're taking on more responsibility than they were initially given in the first place. So, kind of to the audience is, how are you going to train yourself to work with those AI agents, right? Like, you can create a learning plan, you can do all those concepts, but why would we, do we need an AI agent for some of this stuff? I guess is my ultimate question.
Yeah. And that oopsie thing you mentioned, is that a technical term? Is that one of the new AI? I love that. Whoopsie. Yeah, that's funny. All right. So I love the thinking of how can we best interact with these AI agents, and I think understanding failure modes, understanding where they lack, where does a human in the loop need to be there, those sort of things is essential. How about we're going to move on to ship it or skip it soon, but I want to maybe touch on, if you had advice to organizations, what a time to be alive, right? We are in a time where people are scared. There's a lot of crazy talk out in the market right now, and people are scared for their jobs. They're afraid for their livelihoods. Am I going to be able to put food on the table for my kids and all of that sort of stuff, right? How can organizations lead with empathy and think about the people? Because I mean, business is about people. It's not about the numbers. It's about people ultimately, right? Because if you're not helping people, you don't have a business. What advice can we give to the organizations to help them, navigate these waters and do so in a responsible, right, ethical, and empathetic way?
I think the best case studies for this are the companies that have already made the whoopsie. There's plenty of them. 95% of organizations investing in AI have not done it correctly, and that's from a 2025 study. The 2026 update hasn't been released yet, but I'm guessing it's going to be around the same number. What these organizations are lacking, they're not thinking about AI from a systems perspective. They're just trying to put in a pinpoint solution. Organizations aren't investing in the training, which goes into that system. They're not thinking about it in terms of skills. They're thinking about it in terms of training, which is kind of interesting, right? But a traditional, have consultants come in and train me on a system isn't going to work with AI, because the AI updates every 2 days. It interacts more with your employees. There's different types of AI. It's confusing for folks. Uh, the last part, I don't think a lot of organizations realize that this is change management. I've actually overlooked that a lot of it, but you have to have the adoption piece, even if you have the AI piece, and it's mission critical. So change management, yes, that might be a very broad term, but where are we at today? Measure it. Where do we want to go? And then how do we get there? Where are the gaps? And we're making that piece a little bit more complex than it needs to be, but it doesn't really, that could be the first part of your AI transformation, change management. And by having those skills baked into that change management, the company's doing the best thing for their employees, because which way the organization goes, even if the employees aren't there, the employees can pivot and they have those skill sets, where before there was probably some apprehension to upskill the employees because they wanted to retain them. Things are changing. They probably still want to retain as many employees that they need. They just don't know how many they need at this point, right? So by teaching those skills, by investing in their employees, they're being as empathetic as possible. They're creating those career journeys. They're letting cross pollination. Doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be a mass layoff, but if I'm in role X and I end up in the same company in role Y, that's the best outcome for everybody. Instead of, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. So we've had a lot of guests who kind of talked about that. You mentioned it, you alluded to it briefly, but like kind of, back to the basics. Like if any industry should be understanding of like massive change. Technology is that industry. I mean, we're used to this, right? So we don't need to freak out about AI. Yes, it's very impactful and it's going to have a long lasting impact on our industry. However, we should have been building these muscles up all along for a long time. I mean, it's not like technology just stays the same for years on end. It changes all the time around us. So just kind of calm down, as you said, measure where are we at right now? Where do we want to be? How are we going to measure, when we get there, did we do a good job? And those sort of things. All of those muscles, we've already should have been building those for decades in technology. So just go back to the basics and remember your training, Luke, those sort of things, right? I think that we would all be wise to kind of, as you said, kind of take a breath a little bit and let's think through this and just fall back on some of our existing muscles. There's a whole bunch of new stuff we have to learn, but there's some fundamental things
And
that
not
we can just
everything
lean on.
needs to be AI. That might sound interesting coming from an AI expert, but sometimes it's just automation that you need,
Yeah,
and you're just
yeah,
using the word
exactly.
AI. So
Yeah,
think about it.
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, now we need to move on to our next segment of the show that we call Ship It or Skip It.
Ship or skip, everybody we gotta tell us if you ship or skip.
The first topic I want to talk about, and we might have alluded to a little bit so far, but this whole notion of we're going to be at 95% unemployment because of AI. Where are you at on that? Do you think that's going to come to be? Are you like, no, where are you at on that topic?
So skip it. I actually think it's the inverse where we're going to have 95% employment because of AI. And the reasoning for that is that AI, at least right now, is creating more job opportunity than any other transformation before it. These roles aren't super well defined, and they're going to so for me to sit here and be like, oh, prompt engineering, sure, that's a real one, AI ethicist, but some jobs we weren't, like a futurist. Now that's a job. Like, I just came from a conference and someone was a futurist instead of like an innovation expert. Interesting job title.
Yeah.
Probably didn't exist more than 2 years ago, right? So there's going to be those opportunities. Think about what AI though can do for individuals that want to start their own business. A lot of individuals don't do their own business or entrepreneurship because there's so many hurdles to it. They don't know where to begin. AI is a great thought partner. Imagine, having a Steve Jobs with you along the way. Everybody has access to that now. And mostly everybody has access to that now. Not saying everybody's going to end up in the same position as Steve Jobs but those problem solving, creativity skills, being able to think outside of the box a little bit, that will get you a job and some income. So yes, jobs are changing, but I don't think we need to stress out about it, or at least not right now. There's just going to be new opportunities.
Yeah, I think, and I'm with you. I mean, I've had a pretty consistent view on this myself. And like, I think that the problem is there's going to be a short term where there's a lot of emphasis on cost cutting. We're going to see this thing as a productivity gain. We're like, oh, you mean we can just continue doing what we're doing right now, but with less cost? Where, as opposed to, oh my goodness, our production can go through the roof. Let's do more things, right? So I think once that light bulb flips on for people, like, wait a minute, I could actually do more things. I can produce more as a company, as opposed to just producing what I am now and cutting all the costs out. I think once that light bulb flips, we're going to see, like, as you said, I mean, the employment, it's not going to be like everybody's talking about. And again, new jobs. There are jobs today that didn't exist 5 years ago even. And so in 2 years, there's going to be a whole new industries created and people with, as you said, their own businesses. I mean, I agree with you. I think it's going to be beneficial. It'll take a little bit to get through it. There's going to be some growing pains, but I think it's going to be a really good thing for employment. I don't see where all the doom and gloom folks are coming from. I understand what they're saying, but I just don't see that coming to fruition.
Well, just on that point a little bit, though, I think there's more negative news around AI than there is
Mhm.
positive news.
Yeah.
And additionally, on top of that, so now everybody's seeing the negative news. Unlike other transformations, bringing this back to skills-based learning, folks don't know it's happening so fast, you don't know how to navigate it. So it's not like a traditional technology where you can just go take a regular training and, kind of be all set for 5 years. This is constant engagement. And I think maybe that change management piece with the constant engagement, people would prefer not to constantly engage and change. So there's less like, we'll see I'll listen to the news for right now. It's horrible.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next. You're hearing a lot of stuff about there seems to be a lot of talk in the market about, well, you're just using AI like Google, you're doing it wrong. Do you think that's helpful?
That plays into the negativity. That one, I do think I'm seeing a lot of that actually in training. So I'm going to actually ship that one. And bringing this back to skills, individuals are using the LMs, they would use Google, not realizing how to prompt. That prompt engineering step was skipped. But bringing this back to the organization, we've kind of seen the whoopsies with that, where organizations bring in this big investment. They plug in the AI. They do the cost cutting exercise, and then wait, we made a mistake. We have to hire everybody back plus some.
I think the only thing that kind of rubs me the wrong way about you're just using it like Google, you're doing it wrong. Yes, it's great to teach people how to get more effective and to be more effective with using artificial intelligence and generative AI and LLMs. But I don't want it to scare people away, right? Because I think it can have almost a negative effect of like, oh my goodness, that just sounds like a lot of stuff. Prompt engineering. I'm not an engineer. Like, I don't know how to do that. I don't think people need to be afraid and feel like it's a daunting thing. I think you can get a lot of benefit out of using, ChatGPT and those sort of things and Geminis of the world, kind of like Google. That's a good way to get started, right? I don't want
It's a
people to feel like,
wonderful way
oh,
to get started. I was
yeah.
just going to say, it's a wonderful way to get started. Go search Google without AI mode on or any
Mhm.
other search engine. Do it in your favorite AI tool. If you haven't used AI, find a favorite AI tool. You'll get summaries. You'll be able to verify links. It's going to verify sources for you instead of just getting lists, copious amounts of lists. Review 2 products that you're thinking about purchasing and have it do a little bit of an analysis for you. Maybe you'll be swayed to be maybe there's a third product that you didn't even know about. This has happened to me just car shopping. I thought I knew I wanted the car I loved it, the test drive and everything, and then there was this option that was recommended to me. I ended up buying that recommendation. It was interesting. It was crazy because I was very certain, but AI is personalized. It might know you better than you know yourself.
I did the same thing with cars recently too. I had it like kind of give me an and I ended up looking for a different kind of car. So that's cool. I'm gonna have to do that again. I've got a kid turning 16 this year, so I'm gonna go through that whole process. What about the future of traditional higher ed? I mean, there's been a lot of talk about higher ed is a scam, universities are a scam, and those sort of things. What's your take on that?
That one I'm going to skip because a lot of jobs, even though they're going to change, are still going to need higher education. One example, clinical staff. Clinical staff are attached to credentialing. A medical doctor, a nurse, a physical therapist, anybody that works in healthcare needs to have that credential in order to work there. I think we still need that. Maybe not as many as hours. Maybe a doctor doesn't need to go to school for 13 years. We could maybe solve that problem with AI, but they're still going to need a degree to validate that time and that effort. But on the topic of time, most other degrees are measured off of time. That's why they take 4 to 6 years instead of being
Mhm.
measured off skills. That's the part that's going to change. Does a communications major, does a history major, does a data scientist, any other degree program besides the ones that have to stay need to take that amount of time? Probably not, especially if you're using AI to learn. Most of the information's at your fingertips now. So by having a more adaptive product in higher education, you're actually creating that ecosystem with organizations. You'll probably actually get more customers out of it because the organizations are going to continually go back to education instead of the one and done concept that you traditionally what we're doing. You go get your diploma, you go work. Maybe there's some upskilling involved in there, but it's not anything like the diploma journey. If there's constant engagement, it's better for the universities. It will help lower cost. It'll become more accessible. I think that's a beautiful thing, right? Like if people don't have to take out mortgages to go get an education now, right?
Yeah. Oh goodness, wouldn't that be great? Yeah, I do think higher ed needs to respond. I mean, they definitely have gotten and I worked in higher ed, serving the higher ed industry. Some of it they deserve. The cost is a little crazy, right? I mean, they deserve a little bit of that criticism there. But as far as being like a scam, I think that's a reach, right? I think that's too much. We're going too far there. I think it is expensive, yes, but does also prepare people for the workforce. Yes, it teaches them other things and make them more well-rounded and all that stuff. Yes, but that's a good thing. What if you need to go on Jeopardy? But I do that. I'm with you. I don't think that higher ed's going away and they're doomed and we're never going to have that. We just don't need that anymore. I still think there's a place for it, but I do agree that they do need to respond and they need to maybe clean up their house a little bit. The cost has gotten a little crazy, and the costs are escalating faster than they should. So they need to rein that in a little bit, I think, just to be better
Product
capable of
really,
serving
and
us.
to think of education as a product too, is an interesting concept. But the product really hasn't changed for a long amount of time either. It's papers, exams. There's only so many ways you can do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not as much as hands-on learning. So if education institutions merge more closely with regular companies, you could do that mentorship opportunity. You could have workforce-based projects, and that could count for academic credit, just not being in academia. One simple change like that, and you're blowing open the doors.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we are moving on to our last segment of the show, and this one is what we call the lightning round.
It's time for the lightning round. Rapid fire, don't slow down. Answer quick and make it count. In this game, there's no way out. It's time for the lightning round.
And the lightning round, this is, if you've listened to the show, you understand that this is the meat of the show. This is where, the rubber meets the road, whatever, analogy you want to use there. This is the most important part that everybody tunes in for. All of what we just said, we could probably just cut all that out. People are not, they're tuning in for this. This is where the questions get real. They have correct and incorrect answers. This is where things start to really matter. So I just want to make sure that you're aware that that's the level of conversation we're kind of kicking into high gear now. This is now where it really gets important. So you do need to mentally prepare yourself. Are you ready for the lightning round?
I'm personally ready for this. Is my favorite part.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so and you'll understand. I mean, when you hear the questions, you'll understand why this is so important. Do you snore?
Mostly no, but depends on how exhausted I am.
I mean, I'm asleep. If I was, I wouldn't know. Other than being punched by my wife when it's happening, and
that's
what
I know.
Yeah,
exactly. That's how I know.
But how do I know I was actually snoring and she didn't just want to punch me? That's the part I don't know. Never know.
Sometimes my cat tells me I'm snoring too much.
Yeah, I had to come over and smack you in the face. Okay, here's one we've been doing with a lot of guests, and this is an interesting question. Do you like the smell of gasoline?
No.
Okay.
I dislike it so much I drive an EV.
Okay. All right. Fair. How many times do you feel like you've sneezed in the last 7 days?
A data scientist should know this one. 100, potentially?
100. I feel like that's respectable. Not too much. I mean, that's not, you're not lighting up the scoreboard or anything, but I feel like that's a good number. I don't know.
Starting to kick in too, so that's...
Yeah. Things are starting to bloom. Yeah. Again, I don't know the correct answers to these questions. We have a whole algorithm. It's like a Minority Report kind of thing. I have no idea how it's done, but we will share your score with you when we finish in a few months once it's all tallied. Are you a Godfather or Star Wars kind of person?
Star Wars.
Okay. Now the most important: Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Fair. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not so good, 10 being like Derek Jeter. How good are you at wiffle ball?
4.
Now, I'm assuming I've never seen Derek Jeter play wiffle ball, but my assumption is that he would be good. That's what that implication would be there.
10.
Yeah, he would probably be a 10. I mean, who are we kidding? He's probably breaking windows, even with a wiffle ball. Name a word that starts with the letter Q.
Question.
Would you eat a day-old taquito?
I feel like those things are 100 years old already. Yes, probably.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it's a good observation. I like how you're just cutting through. Like, I disagree with the premise of the question, because what am I going to go back in time to when it was a day old and then eat it? Is that what you're saying? Like, well, come on. All right. So when you fly on a plane, are you the kind of person that you're going to wear a neck pillow?
No. It's another thing I have to, well, I guess it depends on the trip, but it's another thing I have to bring. My fiance, all about the neck pillow. It's essential.
And I've seen the people, they do it different. Like, I always thought you put the padding around the back of your neck and you kind of lay back on. But I've seen people on planes lately where they put the padding around in the front of their neck and they rest their chin on it. You know what I mean? And that keeps them from going like this. And I just did a completely visual illustration of what I'm talking about on an audio podcast. So that was dumb. I don't know what the right way is to wear a neck pillow, is what I'm saying.
I mean, does anyone?
Well, that's true. It's not like, I don't know that they come with instructions.
It's more like if you want the window seat or the aisle seat.
Yeah. Because you can put it up against your head. Yeah, on the window. Are you a Sour Patch Kids or Swedish Fish?
Ooh, Swedish Fish.
Okay, yeah. We do a lot with food on these questions, but so that's important to us. And let's see. There's another one that we've been asking a lot of. What's your inside in your house, your thermostat? Where are you setting that?
67.
60. I'm glad there's a definite number on that one, so we can get very analytical with that. If you had to think of what would be like the most boring thing ever, What would that be?
Like anything, I guess sorry, my brain is running in multiple
I know
directions.
there's a lot of options, but like if you can if you pick anything and you're like, man, that is just so boring. I don't want to do that. What would it be?
When you're at the doctor's office waiting to see the doctor.
Yeah. Like now is this
like
out
sitting in the actual room?
Yeah, I'm with you because I've noticed they've kind of caught on to the whole when they used to make you wait in the waiting room. You'd sit there for a long time. They'd finally call you back. They're like, oh, well, we're graded on that waiting room time. We'll just put you in the room, and we'll make you sit there for an hour. Like
That's
they figured,
and
you know,
you're
what I
in
mean?
the
Like
Gownie. That one's awkward too. Yeah.
oh yeah, that's not fun at all. But yeah, and then you feel almost like guilty when the doctor comes in and you're on your phone. You're like, I'm probably not supposed to be doing this. This is a doctor's office. But what else are you going to do? You know?
What else?
Bingo. You know, this is again, this is why the lightning round's important. This is where we get to the real things that people are thinking of and what's important to them on a day-to-day basis. Okay, and we're going to wrap this up here. We're going to get to the final one. Would you rather lose all of your hair or gain 50% more hair?
Gain 50% more hair. No offense.
No, that's fair. I mean, I don't have any. It's been so long for me. I actually wish it would just stop growing because then I wouldn't have to shave and all that. Like, just quit already. You know, like it's just a chore for me at this point because I'm not growing a head of hair ever again in my life. I'm not going to be, you know, like what's his name, the painter dude, Bob Ross. I'm not going to be Bob Ross. I've given up that vision. I always wanted to, you know, have a big Bob Ross hairdo, but I'm not going to. Okay, well that does it for the lightning round. Again, we will tally up everything and share your score with you once it's available. I don't know when that will be. But in closing, any practical takeaways or anything you've got coming up that you want to share with folks that, you know, do you have a book coming out? Are you doing any conference speaking? Do you have a one-man show on Broadway? Anything like that? Do you got in closing here that you'd like to share with us?
Not on Broadway yet, but I do want to emphasize that AI is a recommendation system. It's going to recommend things to you based upon what it thinks is best. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's best, or that it's going to recommend things to you because it's so personalized because you use it all the time. That's what it thinks. Now, it's also a great time to take advantage of that opportunity by building your own personal brand. That might sound a little intimidating, but it could be a LinkedIn post. It could be an Instagram image, however you want to develop your personal brand. But there's never been a time to get involved with personal branding like right now. AI is a great companion for it. AI is going to recommend systems in the future, individuals. If your name appears in the recommendation, just like with search, traditional Google search or any other type of search now, if you're recommended in an AI system, you're probably gonna do well. So now's the time to develop that knowledge base within the AI before the models aren't trained publicly like that anymore. So now's the time to do it. The second thing is if you found what I was saying today interesting, if you're invested in your organization, yourself, and learning pathways, skills-based learning, if there's anything I could help you with, you can find me at bentascherai.com or connect with me on LinkedIn, Ben Tasker. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to ask how we could get in touch with you. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Ben. It was a joy to have you on. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, James. Yeah, this is fun.
Absolutely. Well, if you'd like to get in touch with us here at the /, drop us a line at the / at Calibrity.com. See you next time. The / podcast is created by Calibrity. The / team is director and producer Ryan Wilson, editing by Steve Baradelli, marketing support by Taylor Blessing, and I'm your host, James Carman. Thanks for listening.